He thought protecting her meant staying in the shadows, watching from a distance, being the silent guardian she'd never know about. But when dark cars start following Sumin through the city streets, when strange men appear outside her apartment, when his enemies discover the one thing that could bring the most powerful crime lord to his knees, Jae-won realizes love isn't enough. Because the men who want to destroy him, they don't care about honor. They don't care about innocence. And they've just found his greatest weakness. Now he has 48 hours to dismantle a threat that's been building for months. 48 hours to choose between the empire he built with blood and the family he abandoned with cowardice. This is part 2, and everything is about to explode. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers. Hit that button and let's get there together. You won't believe what happens next. Jae-won woke to sunlight streaming through the car window and Min-jae shaking his shoulder. Boss, you need to see this. He sat up immediately, his neck stiff from sleeping in an awkward position. What is it? Min-jae handed him a tablet. Security footage. Time-stamped 3:47 a.m. A black sedan parked across from the hospital entrance. No plates visible. Tinted windows. It sat there for 20 minutes, then drove away. Could be nothing, Min-jae said. Could be someone waiting for a patient. You don't believe that. No. Min-jae's jaw tightened. I don't. Jae-won watched the footage again, his instincts screaming. Someone was watching. And in his world, surveillance meant one thing. A threat was coming. Pull footage from the past week, he ordered. Every camera within a mile of this hospital. I want to know if this car has been here before. Already on it. Jae-won handed back the tablet and got out of the car, his body aching but his mind sharp. He needed to get to Sumin. Inside the hospital, the morning shift was just beginning. Nurses moved through corridors with carts of medication. Doctors reviewed charts. Everything looked normal. But Jae-won couldn't shake the feeling crawling up his spine. Room 427. He knocked softly before entering. Sumin was awake, sitting up in bed with a breakfast tray in front of her. She looked better, color back in her cheeks, less exhaustion in her eyes. When she saw him, something flickered across her face. Surprise. Then something softer. You came back, she said quietly. I told you I would. She looked down at her hands. I thought maybe you'd change your mind. Go back to your life. Jae-won crossed the room and sat in the chair beside her bed. This is my life, he said simply. Sumin's breath caught. Before she could respond, a nurse entered to check her vitals. Everything looks good, the nurse said cheerfully. Doctor says if you stay stable through today, you can go home tomorrow. Sumin smiled. That's wonderful. But Jae-won's mind was already spinning. Home, to that apartment building, with no security, no protection, with someone potentially watching. The nurse left. Jae-won waited until the door closed. I want to hire security for you, he said. Sumin's head snapped up. What? Just someone to keep an eye on things. Make sure you're safe. Jae-won, I don't need... Please. His voice was quiet but firm. Just for a while. Until the babies are born. After that, if you want them gone, they're gone. Sumin studied his face, her eyes searching. Why? She asked. Why now? Because someone might be watching you. Because I've made enemies who would hurt you just to hurt me. Because I can't breathe when I think about something happening to you. But he couldn't say any of that without terrifying her. So instead, he said, because I want to help, and this is something I can do. Sumin looked away, her jaw working. I don't want your money, she said quietly. It's not about money. It's about keeping you safe. Safe from what? The question hung between them. Jae-won chose his words carefully. I've lived a certain kind of life, he said slowly. Made certain kinds of enemies. Most of them don't know about you. But if they did... He trailed off. I just want to make sure nothing happens, that's all. Sumin's hand moved to her belly, protective and instinctive. You think someone would come after me? After the babies? No, Jae-won lied. I'm just being cautious. But she saw through him. She always had. "Don't lie to me," she said, her voice harder now. "If there's a threat, I need to know." Jaewon's jaw tightened. "There's no specific threat," he said. "But I can't promise there won't be. And I'd rather be prepared than sorry." Sumin stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Okay," she whispered, "but just until the babies are born. After that, we talk about it again." Relief flooded through him. "Thank you." She didn't respond, just looked down at her belly, her expression unreadable. And Jaewon wondered what she was thinking. If she regretted calling him yesterday. If she wished he'd stayed away. If she could ever really trust him again. By noon, Min-jae had the information. The black sedan had been spotted 3 times in the past week. Always at night. Always watching. And yesterday morning, it had followed Sumin from her apartment to the bus stop. Jaewon's blood ran cold. License plate. Stolen. Registered to a vehicle that was scrapped 6 months ago. Cameras? We got a partial on the driver. Running facial recognition now. Jaewon stood at the window of his office, looking out over the city, his mind racing. This wasn't random. Someone was targeting her, which meant someone new. "Who have we pissed off recently?" he asked. Min-jae pulled up a list on his tablet. "The Nakamura Syndicate is still angry about the dock situation. The Italians lost a shipment last month and think we tipped off the feds. And there's always the possibility of internal threats. Someone looking to move up by taking you down." Jaewon's jaw clenched. Too many possibilities. Not enough time. "Double security at the hospital," he ordered. "Put someone on every entrance. I want to know everyone who comes and goes. And when she's discharged. I'll handle it." Min-jae raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. "There's something else," he said carefully. "What?" "Your wife came by the office this morning. She's demanding to know where you've been." Jaewon's expression hardened. "Tell her I'm busy." "I did. She said if you don't come home tonight, she's calling your father." "Let her." Min-jae hesitated. "Boss, your father. I don't care." Jaewon turned from the window, his eyes cold. "My father can threaten me all he wants, but I'm not leaving Sumin unprotected. Not for him. Not for anyone." Min-jae nodded slowly. "Understood." After he left, Jaewon stood alone in his office, staring at the photo on his phone. A picture from 3 years ago. Sumin laughing at something he'd said, her head thrown back, joy radiating from every inch of her. He'd been so happy that day. They both had. And he'd thrown it away. For what? An empire that suddenly felt meaningless. A marriage that was nothing but a business arrangement. A life built on fear instead of love. Jaewon closed his eyes. I was such a fool. But regret wouldn't keep Sumin safe. Action would. He made a call. "It's me," he said when someone answered. "I need a favor." That evening, Jaewon returned to the hospital with something he'd never carried before. A bag of clothes. Comfortable things. Soft sweatpants, oversized sweaters, slippers. Things Sumin might actually want after being stuck in a hospital gown for 24 hours. He'd sent Min-jae to buy them. Too embarrassed to go himself. A crime lord, buying maternity clothes. It was absurd. But when he knocked on her door and she saw what he'd brought, her eyes filled with tears. "You didn't have to do this," she whispered. "I wanted to." She took the bag, her fingers brushing his. And for a moment, neither of them moved. Then Sumin pulled away, clutching the bag to her chest. "Thank you," she said softly. Jaewon nodded, his throat tight. He sat in the chair while she changed in the bathroom, and when she emerged in the soft gray sweatpants and cream sweater, she looked more like herself than she had in days. "Better?" he asked. "Much." She sat on the edge of the bed, running her hands over the fabric. "These are really comfortable." "Good." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Sumin said, "The doctor came by earlier. He said I can go home tomorrow morning if everything stays stable." Jaewon's stomach tightened. "That's good news." "Is it?" She looked at him, her eyes searching. "You don't look happy." "I am," he lied. I want to make sure you have everything you need when you get home." Sumin's expression softened. "Jaewon, I'll be fine. I've been managing on my own for months. That's what I'm afraid of." But he couldn't say that. So instead he said, "I know, but let me help anyway." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. A message from Minjae. Facial recognition came back. "You need to see this." Jaewon's jaw tightened. "I have to make a call," he said, standing. "I'll be right back." Sumin nodded, watching him leave with a confused expression. In the hallway, Jaewon called Minjae. "What did you find?" "The driver is Park Sung-ho. Low-level enforcer. Works for whoever pays him." "Who's paying him now?" A pause. "We don't know yet, but boss, he's been arrested twice for assault. Both times the charges were dropped. Someone with influence is protecting him." Jaewon's blood ran cold. "Send me everything you have, and find out who he's working for. I want a name by tomorrow." "On it." Jaewon hung up and stood in the hallway, his mind racing. Someone had hired a known enforcer to watch Sumin, which meant this wasn't just surveillance. It was a prelude to something worse. He pulled out his phone and made another call. "Jihoon, I need a team." "How many?" 3. Experienced, discreet. "I want them watching someone 24/7. "Who?" Jaewon hesitated, then said, "Someone important to me." Jihoon, an old friend who ran a private security firm, didn't ask questions. "When do you need them?" "Tomorrow morning." "Done." Jaewon hung up and leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. He was doing everything he could. But it didn't feel like enough. Because in his world, threats didn't announce themselves. They struck fast. And by the time you saw them coming, it was already too late. When he returned to the room, Sumin was lying down, one hand on her belly. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Fine, just work." She studied him, her eyes narrowing slightly. "You're lying." Jaewon's chest tightened. "Sumin, don't." She sat up. "I can tell when you're lying. You get this look on your face, like you're trying to solve a problem you don't want me to know about." He sat down heavily in the chair. For a moment, he considered telling her everything. The surveillance, the enforcer, the threat that was circling closer. But she was 7 months pregnant, stressed and vulnerable. Telling her would only make things worse. So instead, he said, "I'm just worried about you, that's all." Sumin's expression softened. "I'll be okay," she said gently. "I promise." Jaewon nodded, but he didn't believe her, because she didn't understand. In his world, promises meant nothing. Only power did. And right now, someone with power wanted to hurt him, by hurting her. That night, Jaewon didn't leave the hospital. He told the nurses he was staying. They tried to protest, but one look at his face and they backed off. He pulled the chair close to Sumin's bed and sat in the dark, watching her sleep. She looked peaceful, safe, but he knew it was an illusion. Around 2 a.m., his phone buzzed. A message from one of his men stationed outside. Black sedan just did another pass. Didn't stop. Just slowed down near the entrance. Jaewon's jaw clenched. He stood and walked to the window, looking down at the parking lot. Nothing. Just empty cars and streetlights. But somewhere out there, someone was watching, waiting. And Jaewon knew, with absolute certainty, that this was only the beginning. Morning came too fast. Sumin was cleared for discharge, and Jaewon watched as nurses brought her paperwork, discharge instructions, prescriptions. She signed everything with trembling hands, clearly exhausted, but trying to hide it. "Ready?" he asked gently. She nodded. But when she stood, she swayed slightly. Jaewon was there instantly, his hand on her elbow. "I'm fine," she said quickly. "Just a little dizzy." "Sit," he ordered, guiding her back to the bed. "Jaewon, I'm fine." "You're not fine. You just spent 2 days in the hospital. Sit." She sat, looking annoyed but also relieved. A nurse appeared with a wheelchair. "Hospital policy," she said cheerfully. "Everyone gets wheeled out." Sumin looked like she wanted to argue, but Jae-won gave her a look. "Don't fight it," he said. She sighed, but settled into the wheelchair. Jae-won grabbed her bag and followed as the nurse wheeled her toward the elevators. Outside, Min-jae was waiting with the car. But so were 3 other men, tall, alert, wearing dark suits and earpieces. Sumin's eyes widened. "Who are they?" she asked. "Your security," Jae-won said calmly. "I thought you said—" "I said someone to keep an eye on things. They're professionals. They'll stay out of your way." Sumin looked at the 3 men, then back at Jae-won. "This is too much. It's necessary." "For what?" "You still haven't told me." "Because I need to know you're safe." The words came out harder than he intended. Sumin flinched. Jae-won closed his eyes, forcing himself to calm down. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Please, let them do their job. If nothing happens, great. But if something does—" His voice broke. "I can't lose you. I can't lose them." Sumin stared at him, her eyes searching his face. Then she looked at the 3 security guards, then back at him. "Okay," she whispered. "But only until the babies are born." Relief flooded through him. "Thank you." Min-jae helped her into the backseat of the car. Jae-won slid in beside her. The security team got into a second vehicle, and they drove across the city in silence. Sumin stared out the window, her hand resting on her belly, her expression unreadable. Jae-won wanted to say something, to explain, to make her understand. But what could he say? "I've made enemies who would destroy you just to hurt me. I've lived a life where violence is currency and love is weakness, and now you and our sons are paying the price for my choices." He said nothing, just sat beside her, close enough to touch but feeling miles away. When they arrived at her apartment building, Sumin's eyes widened. What happened? The building looked completely different. New paint, new doors. Security cameras mounted at every entrance. A keypad entry system where there used to be a broken lock. "Building renovations," Jae-won said casually. Sumin turned to him, her eyes narrowing. "You did this. The building needed work. You bought this building." He didn't deny it. Sumin's jaw tightened. "I told you I didn't want your money. This isn't about money. It's about safety. It's about control." The words hung between them. Jae-won's chest tightened. "You're right," he said quietly. "It is about control. Because I can't control what happened 8 months ago. I can't control the fact that I left you. I can't control the fact that I hurt you. But I can control this. I can make sure you're safe. I can make sure our sons are safe. So yes, I bought the building. And I renovated it. And I hired security. Because it's the only thing I can do." Sumin stared at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I don't know how to let you do this," she whispered. "Then don't think about it as letting me. Think about it as protecting our sons." She looked away, her hand moving to her belly. "They're not even born yet," she said softly. "And already you're building walls around them. I'm building walls around you. Why? Because you matter." The words burst out of him. "Because you've always mattered, and I was too stupid to see it, too scared to admit it. And now—" His voice broke. "Now I'm terrified that I'm going to lose you before I ever get the chance to make it right." Sumin's breath caught. A tear slipped down her cheek. "You can't just say things like that," she whispered. "Why not? It's true. Because it hurts." Her voice cracked. "It hurts to hear you say you care now when you didn't care enough to stay then." Jae-won felt like she'd driven a knife straight through his chest. "I know," he said, his voice barely audible. "And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." They sat in silence, the weight of 8 months pressing down on them. Then Sumin wiped her eyes and opened the car door. "I need to lie down," she said quietly. Jae-won helped her out of the car. The security team maintained a respectful distance as they walked into the building. Inside her apartment, which also looked different, cleaner, safer, Sumin turned to him. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. But I need to be alone right now." Jae-won nodded. "I'll be nearby if you need anything." She closed the door softly, and Jae-won stood in the hallway, staring at the wood grain, feeling like he'd just lost something he couldn't name. Downstairs, Min-jae was waiting. "Boss, we got a hit on Park Sung-ho." Jae-won's attention snapped to him. "Where?" "He's been staying at a motel on the south side, low-rent place, cash only." "Anyone with him?" "Not that we can tell." Jae-won's jaw tightened. "I want to talk to him." Min-jae's eyes widened. "Are you sure that's—" "I want to know who hired him, and I want to know tonight." "What about Sumin?" "The team will watch her. You're coming with me." Min-jae nodded. "Understood." As they drove across the city toward the south side, Jae-won stared out the window, his mind spinning. Someone had targeted Sumin. Someone knew she mattered to him. And someone was going to pay. The motel was exactly what Jae-won expected. Peeling paint, flickering neon sign, parking lot full of rust bucket cars. Min-jae had already confirmed the room number. Second floor. They walked up the exterior stairs, Min-jae's hand resting casually on the gun concealed beneath his jacket. Jae-won didn't knock. He just kicked the door open. Inside, a man sat on the bed, cigarette in hand, watching TV. Park Sung-ho. He looked up, startled, then saw Jae-won, and went pale. "Oh shit!" Jae-won crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed him by the throat, slamming him against the wall. "Who hired you?" he growled. Park gasped, clawing at Jae-won's hand. I don't know what you're—" Jae-won tightened his grip. "You've been following a pregnant woman for the past week. I want to know who paid you to do it." Park's eyes bulged. I swear I don't know his name." "Then tell me what you do know." Park gasped for air. Jae-won loosened his grip slightly. Just enough for the man to talk. He contacted me through an intermediary," Park wheezed. "Never gave a name. Just said to watch the woman. Report where she goes, who she sees." "What else?" "Nothing. I swear. Just surveillance. No contact. No threats." Jae-won's eyes narrowed. "You're lying." "I'm not—" Jae-won slammed him against the wall again. "What else?" Park's face twisted with fear. He said if she went anywhere alone, if she was ever vulnerable, to call him." Jae-won's blood ran cold. "And did you?" "No. She's never alone. She's always got people around her, and now she's got those guards." Jae-won released him. Park collapsed to the floor, gasping. "Who's the intermediary?" Min-jae asked from the doorway. Park looked up, his eyes wild. "I can't. If I tell you, they'll kill me." Jae-won crouched down, his voice deadly calm. "If you don't tell me, I'll kill you myself." Park stared at him and saw the truth in his eyes. "Lee Jin-woo," he gasped, "runs a gambling den on the west side. He's the one who contacted me." Jae-won stood. "If you go near her again," he said quietly, "I will find you. And there won't be enough left of you to identify. Understand?" Park nodded frantically. Jae-won turned and walked out. Min-jae followed, closing the door behind them. "Lee Jin-woo," Min-jae said. I know who it is. Lee Jin-woo. A mid-level operator who worked for multiple bosses. A man with no loyalty. Only profit. Which meant someone had paid him to set up surveillance on Sumin. Someone with resources. Someone with reach. And Jae-won was going to find out who, even if he had to burn the entire city to do it. Lee Jin-woo's gambling den was hidden behind a legitimate noodle shop on the west side. To get in, you had to know the right door, the right password, the right people. Jae-won knew all 3. He'd been here before, years ago, back when he was still building his reputation. Back when Lee Jin-woo was just another small-time operator trying to survive in a city full of sharks. Now, apparently, Jinwoo had gotten bold enough to take money to spy on Jae-won's family. That was a mistake. Min-jae drove them to the location just after midnight. The streets were quiet, the noodle shop dark except for a single light in the back. "You want backup?" Min-jae asked. "No, just you." They got out of the car and walked to the side entrance. Jae-won knocked. 3 quick raps, pause, 2 more. The door opened a crack. A young guard peered out, his eyes widening when he recognized Jae-won. "Sir, we weren't expecting—" "I'm not here for a game," Jae-won said coldly. "I'm here for Jinwoo." The guard hesitated, then stepped aside. Inside, the gambling den was busy despite the late hour. Tables crowded with men playing cards, dice, placing bets on everything from sports to street races. Cigarette smoke hung thick in the air. Money changed hands in stacks of bills. All of it stopped when Jae-won walked in. Conversations died. Cards froze mid-deal. Every eye in the room turned to him, because they knew who he was, and they knew what it meant when he showed up unannounced. At the back of the room, sitting at a private table with a glass of expensive whiskey, Lee Jinwoo looked up. His face went white. Jae-won crossed the room slowly, deliberately, letting the silence stretch. Jinwoo stood, forcing a smile. "Jae-won, what an unexpected pleasure. Please sit, have a drink. Who paid you to watch her?" The smile vanished. Jinwoo's eyes darted to the exits, calculating. But Min-jae had already positioned himself between Jinwoo and the door. "I don't know what you're—" Jae-won grabbed him by the collar and slammed him down onto the table. Glasses shattered. Whiskey spilled. The entire room flinched. "Who paid you?" Jinwoo gasped, his hands clawing at Jae-won's wrist. "Please, I can't. He'll kill me. I'll kill you now if you don't tell me." Jinwoo's eyes were wild with terror. He looked around the room, desperately seeking help, but no one moved. No one would dare. "It was Choi!" he finally gasped. "Choi Dae-jung!" Jae-won froze. The name hit him like a physical blow. Choi Dae-jung, one of the old guard. A powerful boss who'd been in the game longer than Jae-won had been alive. A man who controlled half the waterfront and had connections that reached into government, police, even international syndicates. And a man who'd hated Jae-won ever since Jae-won had refused to bow to him 3 years ago. "Why?" Jae-won demanded, his voice deadly quiet. "I don't know. I swear. He just said to watch the woman, report her movements, and wait for further instructions." "What instructions?" "He didn't say. He just paid me to set up surveillance and promised more money if something happened." Jae-won's blood ran cold. If what happened? Jinwoo was trembling now, sweat pouring down his face. If she was ever alone, vulnerable, he said. He said he wanted to know the right moment. The right moment. To strike, to hurt her, to use her as leverage. Jae-won released Jinwoo and stepped back, his entire body vibrating with rage. Choi Dae-jung wanted to hurt Sumin to get to him, which meant this wasn't just about business. This was personal. "Where is he?" Jae-won asked, his voice ice. "I don't know. He never tells anyone where he is. He just calls." "Then you're going to call him now." Jinwoo's eyes widened. "What?" "Call him. Tell him you have information. Tell him the woman is alone tomorrow at noon. Set up a meeting. He'll know it's a trap. He'll take the bait," Jae-won said coldly. "Because he's arrogant. And arrogance makes men stupid." Jinwoo stared at him, his hands shaking. "If I do this, if he finds out I helped you, if you don't do this," Jae-won said quietly, leaning in close, "I will burn this place to the ground with you inside it. Choose." Jinwoo swallowed hard, then nodded. Okay, I'll call him." Jae-won stepped back. "Min-jae, make sure he doesn't try anything clever." Min-jae nodded, pulling out his phone to record the conversation. Jinwoo pulled out a burner phone with trembling hands and dialed. It rang 3 times. Then a voice answered. Deep, gravelly, familiar. This better be important. It's Jinwoo. I have news about the woman. A pause. I'm listening. She's being discharged from the hospital tomorrow. The security team will be changing shifts at noon. There's a 15-minute window where she'll be alone in her apartment. Another pause. Longer this time. Jae-won could almost hear Choi thinking, calculating, weighing the information. You're sure about this timing? Positive. I've been watching the guards. They're sloppy. Predictable. A low chuckle. Good work, Jinwoo. There's a bonus in this for you. Thank you, sir. I'll handle it from here. The line went dead. Jinwoo looked up at Jae-won, his face pale. He bought it. Jae-won nodded. Min-jae, make sure Jinwoo stays here tonight. No phone calls, no messages. Nothing. What are you going to do? Jinwoo asked, his voice barely a whisper. Jae-won looked at him with eyes like winter. I'm going to end this. Outside, Jae-won stood in the cold night air, his breath forming clouds. Min-jae joined him. What's the plan? Choi thinks he has a window to strike. We're going to give him one. You're using Sumin as bait? No. Jae-won's voice was hard. I'm using myself as bait. Sumin will be nowhere near her apartment tomorrow. I'll make sure of it. And Choi? Choi will send his men to her apartment expecting to find her alone. Instead, they'll find me. Min-jae's eyes widened slightly. That's dangerous. I don't care. Boss, I'm done running, Jae-won said, his voice cutting through the night. I'm done hiding. I'm done letting other people threaten what's mine. Choi wants a war? I'll give him one. Min-jae studied him for a long moment, then nodded. What do you need? 10 men. Our best. Armed but discreet. I want them positioned around the building by 11A. And I need you to get Sumin out of there without her knowing why. How? Jae-won thought for a moment. Doctor's appointment. Tell her it's a follow-up. Take her somewhere safe and keep her there until I call. And if she asks questions? Tell her whatever you have to. Just keep her away. Min-jae nodded. Understood. Jae-won pulled out his phone and stared at it. He wanted to call Sumin, to hear her voice, to tell her everything would be okay. But he couldn't. Not yet. Not until this was over. So instead, he just sent her a text. Good night. Rest well. I'll see you tomorrow. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then reappeared. Finally, a response. Good night. Just 2 words. But somehow they felt like forgiveness. Or at least the beginning of it. Jae-won stared at the message for a long moment. Then put his phone away and got back in the car. Tomorrow, he would end the threat. Tomorrow, he would protect his family. Tomorrow, he would prove that he could be the man they needed him to be. Even if it cost him everything. The next morning came too fast. Jae-won barely slept. He spent the night coordinating with his men, planning every detail, running through scenarios in his mind. By 9 a.m., everything was in place. 10 of his best operatives positioned around Sumin's building. Some in cars, some in neighboring apartments. Some disguised as maintenance workers, all of them armed, all of them waiting. At 10 a.m., Min-jae texted. She's asking why she needs another appointment. She's suspicious. Jae-won cursed under his breath and called him. What did you tell her? That the doctor wanted to check the baby's heart rates after the scare. She's not buying it. Put her on. A pause. Then Sumin's voice, sharp and worried. Jae-won, what's going on? His chest tightened at the sound of her voice. Nothing's going on. The doctor just wants to be cautious. The doctor didn't call me. Min-jae did. Damn, she was too smart. I asked him to set it up, Jae-won said carefully. I wanted to make sure everything was okay after yesterday. Please, Sumin, just go to the appointment. For me. Silence. Then quietly. You're scaring me. His heart broke. I know. And I'm sorry. But I need you to trust me. Just for today. Can you do that? Another long pause. Okay, she finally whispered. But you're going to explain everything later. I promise. She hung up. Jae-won exhaled, relief flooding through him. At least she'd be safe. That was all that mattered. By 11:45 a.m., Sumin was across the city at a private clinic, Min-jae watching over her. And Jae-won was inside her apartment, standing in the middle of the living room, waiting. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. He could hear his own heartbeat. At 11:58, his earpiece crackled. One of his men positioned outside. "Boss, 2 vehicles approaching, black SUVs, 4 men in each." Jae-won's jaw tightened. Let them come. At noon exactly, he heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, purposeful, multiple people. Then the door handle rattled. Someone picking the lock. Jae-won stood perfectly still, his hand resting casually on the gun tucked into his waistband. The door opened. 4 men entered, all wearing dark clothes, all armed. They froze when they saw him. "Surprise," Jae-won said coldly. The lead man, a thick-necked enforcer with a scar across his jaw, recovered first. "Where is she?" "Not here." "Which I think you've figured out." Scarface's expression hardened. "Choi's not going to be happy about this." "Good. Tell him to come talk to me himself instead of sending lackeys." The man's hand moved toward his weapon, but before he could draw, red laser dots appeared on his chest, then on each of his companions. Sniper sights, from the windows, from the rooftops, everywhere. "I wouldn't," Jae-won said calmly. "You're outnumbered and outgunned. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to put your weapons on the floor. Then you're going to walk out of here. And you're going to tell Choi that if he ever comes near her again, I will dismantle everything he's built, piece by piece." Scarface glared at him. But slowly, carefully, he set his gun on the floor. The others followed. "Smart choice," Jae-won said. They turned to leave, but Jae-won's voice stopped them. "And tell Choi one more thing." Scarface turned back. "I'm done playing his games. If he wants a war, he can have one. But it won't be fought by hurting innocent people. It'll be fought between him and me, directly." The man's eyes narrowed. Then he nodded once and walked out. His companions followed. Jae-won waited until he heard the SUVs drive away. Then he exhaled, his entire body sagging with relief. It was over. For now. His phone rang. An unknown number. He answered. "Bold move, Jae-won." Choi Dae-jung's voice, smooth, amused. "You expected me to just let you threaten her?" "I expected you to be smart enough to know when you're outmatched." "I'm not outmatched. I'm just done playing games." A low chuckle. "You think having a few snipers makes you untouchable?" "No, but having nothing left to lose does." Silence. Then Choi's voice, colder now. "You're willing to risk everything for her? For some woman you abandoned?" "She's not some woman. She's the mother of my children. And if you touch her, if you so much as look at her wrong, I will burn your empire to ash." Big words from a man whose father built everything he has. "My father's dead," Jae-won said flatly, "and I've built my own empire. One that doesn't rely on fear and intimidation. One that protects what matters." Another pause. "You've changed." "Yes, I have. Love makes you weak." "No," Jae-won said quietly. "Love makes me dangerous, because now I have something worth fighting for." A long silence. Then Choi laughed. A genuine sound. "You know what? I believe you. And honestly, I respect it." Jae-won blinked, surprised. "So this is over?" "This is over," Choi confirmed. "I wanted to see if you still had spine. Turns out you do. More than I expected, actually." "So all of this, the surveillance, the threats, was a test, and you passed. Congratulations." Jae-won's hand tightened on the phone, fury building. "You terrorized her for a test?" "I never terrorized her. I just watched. If she'd been in actual danger, you would have known." "That's supposed to make me feel better?" "No, it's supposed to make you stronger," which it did. Choi's voice shifted, becoming almost friendly. "You're not your father's son anymore, Jae-won. You're your own man. That's worth respecting." The line went dead. Jae-won stood there, staring at his phone, processing. It had been a test, a cruel, manipulative test. But it was over. Sumin was safe. His sons were safe. And for the first time in weeks, he could breathe. Jae-won called Min-jae. "It's over. Bring her home." "You're sure?" "I'm sure." An hour later, Sumin walked into her apartment, Min-jae trailing behind her. Her eyes went straight to Jae-won. "Start talking," she said, her voice hard. And he did. He told her everything. The surveillance, the enforcer, Choi Dae-jung, the confrontation. All of it. By the time he finished, Sumin was sitting on the couch, her hands pressed to her face, tears streaming between her fingers. "You used yourself as bait," she whispered. "You could have been killed. But I wasn't. That's not the point." Her voice broke. "You could have died, and I would have... our sons would have..." She couldn't finish. Jae-won crossed the room and knelt in front of her. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't know how else to protect you." "By risking your life?" "Yes." She looked at him, her eyes red and swollen. "That's not protection, Jae-won. That's suicide." "Maybe, but it worked." Sumin shook her head, fresh tears falling. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I can't spend my life wondering if you're going to come home. If our sons are going to grow up without a father, because you took a risk you didn't have to take." Jae-won's chest tightened. "Then I'll change." She looked up, surprised. "What?" "I'll leave the organization, walk away from all of it. I'll find something else, something legal, something safe, whatever you need." "Jae-won, I mean it." His voice was fierce now. "I don't care about the empire. I don't care about power. I only care about you, about them. Tell me what you need, and I'll do it." Sumin stared at him, her breath hitching. "You'd really walk away? For you?" "I'd walk away from everything." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You can't just say things like that." "Why not? It's true." "Because..." Her voice broke. "Because I'm starting to believe you." Jae-won's heart stopped, then restarted, pounding so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. Is that a bad thing?" Sumin looked at him for a long moment. Then, so quietly he almost didn't hear it. "No, it's terrifying, but it's not bad." Hope bloomed in his chest, fragile, tentative, but real. "Can I..." He hesitated. "Can I touch you?" Sumin's breath caught, then she nodded. Slowly, carefully, Jae-won reached out and placed his hand on her belly. The moment his palm made contact, he felt it. A flutter, then a kick, strong and definite. His sons, moving, alive. Jae-won's vision blurred. "They're really in there," he whispered. "Yeah," Sumin said, her voice thick with emotion. "They are." Another kick, stronger this time. Jae-won laughed, a broken, joyful sound. "They're strong. Like their father." He looked up at her, his eyes wet. "I'm not strong. I'm terrified." "Good," Sumin said, a small smile tugging at her lips. "That means you're paying attention." He laughed again, the sound lighter this time. And for a moment, they just sat there, his hand on her belly, her hand covering his. Their sons moving between them. "I don't know how to do this," Sumin finally said. "I don't know how to forgive you, how to trust you again." "I know, but I want to try." Jae-won's heart soared. "Yeah? Yeah." She wiped her eyes. "For them, and maybe for us too." He brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "I won't let you down," he promised. "Not again." "You better not," she said, her voice teasing but her eyes serious. "Because if you do, I have 3 security guards who will definitely help me hide the body." Jae-won laughed, a real, genuine laugh. And Sumin smiled, and for the first time in 8 months, everything felt possible. 3 months later, Jae-won stood in the hospital room, his hand gripping Sumin's as she pushed. She was exhausted, sweating, beautiful. "One more," the doctor encouraged. "One more big push." Sumin screamed, her entire body straining, and then, A cry, high-pitched, furious, perfect. "It's a boy!" the doctor announced, holding up a tiny, squirming infant. Jaewon's knees nearly gave out. His son. They cleaned the baby and placed him on Sumin's chest. She looked down at him, tears streaming down her face. "Hi, baby," she whispered. "Hi." The infant stopped crying, his eyes trying to focus on her face. And Jaewon felt his heart break open in the best possible way. "One more," the doctor said. "Here comes number 2. Sumin pushed again, and minutes later, another cry filled the room. Another son. They placed him beside his brother on Sumin's chest. And she looked at them, both of them, her sons, her miracles, and sobbed. Jaewon leaned down, his forehead resting against hers. "You did it," he whispered. "You're amazing." "We did it," she corrected, her voice hoarse. He kissed her forehead, then looked down at his sons, 2 perfect boys, one with a full head of dark hair, the other nearly bald, both of them wailing, their tiny fists waving in the air. "They're so small," he breathed. "They're perfect," Sumin said. And they were. Absolutely perfect. 6 months later, Jaewon sat on the floor of Sumin's apartment, their apartment now, since he'd moved in 3 months ago, surrounded by toys. One son, Minho, the one with dark hair, was grabbing at his fingers, trying to pull them into his mouth. The other, Tae-oh, the nearly bald one who'd since grown a tuft of soft brown hair, was on his stomach, attempting to crawl. Sumin sat on the couch, watching them with a soft smile. "You're getting good at this," she said. "At what?" "Being a dad." Jaewon looked up at her, his heart full. "I'm trying." "You're doing more than trying." Minho succeeded in getting Jaewon's finger into his mouth and bit down with his gums. Jaewon yelped. Sumin laughed. "He's got your determination," she said, "and your stubbornness." "That's definitely from you." They smiled at each other, and in that moment, everything was exactly as it should be. Jaewon had left the organization 3 months ago, walked away from the empire, the power, all of it. Now he worked with Min-jae running a legitimate security consulting firm. It was boring compared to his old life. Safe, legal, exactly what his family needed. "Hey," Sumin said softly. He looked up. "I love you." The words hit him like a wave. She hadn't said them since before he left. Hadn't been able to. Until now. "I love you too," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "So much." Sumin smiled. And Jaewon knew, with absolute certainty, that he'd made the right choice. The empire meant nothing, power meant nothing. This was everything. His sons, his family. The woman he'd almost lost and somehow been given a second chance with. Tae-oh finally managed to crawl forward a few inches and immediately face-planted into a stuffed giraffe. He wailed. Jaewon scooped him up, holding him close. "You're okay, buddy. You're okay." Tae-oh's cries faded to sniffles, and Jaewon looked at Sumin over their son's head. She was watching him with so much love in her eyes it took his breath away. "We're going to be okay," she said softly. "Yeah," he agreed. "We are." And for the first time in his life, Jaewon believed it. Not because he had power, not because he had control, but because he had them. And that was more than enough. The end. Jaewon left the criminal world behind, built a legitimate life, and is now a present father and a partner who deserves the forgiveness Sumin chose to give him. The twins are healthy, the family is together, and love conquered fear.